Welcome to your front row seat at the edge with Dionne van Zyl. I'm Dia Becchio, and in just a moment, you can dive in with us as we chat about the top business strategies that are sparking a kingdom mindset revolution. These strategies have created billions of dollars, ignited whole industries, and they work for any business. Today's episode is an excerpt from The Inner Circle, our monthly CEO call where we discuss and implement high-level growth strategies that will double or even triple your performance. In this session, Dionne shares some stories, tips, and tricks from over 30 years of experience in the private equity sector. Let's dive in.
I want to talk through a topic we've been working quite a bit on here at The Edge. I've led 27 companies to date. And what I've learned is that if you look at the spectrum of where I've gone through, it's technology, finance, real estate investment portfolios. I've been involved in foreign exchange trading. I've been involved with 3 nonprofits, a school, 2 churches. And going through that process, what I found is a commonality. And when you're starting and running a business, you do get sucked into all the detail of it. And we talk often at The Edge about working on the business, not always in it, and trying to take a few hours every week where you work on the business and teaching your team to do the same. I call this little exercise, how does your business end? I wrote an article which should get published here in USA Today in the next few days. And one of the things I talked through there is, let me help you end your business. Here's what happens. Your business will end. One way or another, it will end. Whether you sell it, give it away, or close it, it's going to end one way or another. So the real question is, and here's a really helpful exercise I'd love us to do today, is I would like to imagine that it's 5 years down the road and you're selling your business to me. I'm the buyer. We're sitting at the table. I'm buying your business. First question is, what exactly am I buying? That is not as easy to answer as one might think. You can say, I have a roofing and solar business. No, but specifically, am I buying your clients? Am I buying a technology? Am I buying access to that regional market because I already have access to other markets in the country, but not that one? So the buyer is as important as the seller in these relationships. You can say, I just want to run my business. I'm not thinking about 5 years down the road. You should be. Here's why. I can't tell you how many times I've sat on both sides of the table as the seller and as the buyer. And it's really sad when I see founders who've poured their lives, made unbelievable sacrifice, their families have paid a price. And then they realize, man, if just a year or two ago I tweaked this, changed that, fixed this, I could have doubled the value. In one case, literally could have made it 10x. Could have literally added a zero if they put the thing online and made it a SaaS product, software as a service product. So when you're thinking about this, is a powerful way as a leader to think about, what are you doing? What are we actually doing? Why did I start this business? What's the point of it? If you were just looking for a job, you're going to become a franchisee. That's a cool job. A lot of people from professional world go and do that. They just become a franchisee. You see a lot of very senior people from consulting firms and so on who are like, I'm done with that stress. I just want to run 5 pizza stores or whatever it is. And that's fine. If you're looking to give yourself a job, that's fine. And here's the thing. If you are the person who does all the selling and all the fulfillment, you don't have a business, you just have a job. But now you can turn it into a business. And there's a way to turn it into a business. And so this exercise is designed to help you cut through the noise. So as I said, the 2 questions, if I'm buying your business, what exactly am I buying and how much am I paying? You say, I don't know, but you should know. You should have a good sense of it, or at least know what things will influence that value. So if I were to buy your business today, and we're going to go through how do you determine that? We're going to do that right now. And so we're not going to just keep it theoretical. We're going to dig into this. And the reason is, as you dig out the underlying economics of what's creating value that somebody would buy, you'll realize exactly what it is you're building. I'm going to for this exercise, put my private equity hat on. We get pitched all the time. Come buy my business, invest in my business, all that stuff. And I would say of the 20 companies that pitched us, we probably took an interest in 1. And a friend of mine who consults with CEOs here in Atlanta I'd mentioned that. And he said, I have a group of 12 CEOs I work with. Would you come and spend a day with us and tell us what is it you look at when you pick up our pitch book? Because we'll write those big fat pitch books and a pitch deck or whatever you call it. That document that says, buy my business, this is the, or invest in my businesses, here's the returns and so on. And it was talking to those group of CEOs. So they all came to the meeting with their pitch. I didn't see any of them beforehand. They didn't send me them beforehand. They just put them on the table. I picked them up. I turned to certain pages and I just explained what I was doing. It was really helpful, but I think it was very disheartening for many of them because what they were focused on, because they were running the business, because they were dealing with staff issues and customer issues and product issues and trying to manage payroll and just the stuff that makes up business, is they were a little surprised to see it through my eyes. And here's some of the surprise elements. Firstly, I said to them, if I gave you an interview, I'd be looking at the 50-40-10 principle. So think of yourself as this. You're coming to pitch to the private equity firm and you have to pitch the full value of your business. They're going to buy it or invest in it. Doesn't really matter. Same thing. The first 10% of the time, in other words, 6 minutes, you get to talk about the product. That's it. 6 minutes. Because at the end of the day, it's just a widget. From the private equity point of view, I don't care if you're selling pencils or barbed wire. Honestly, I don't care. I really don't, because it's the other things that make it up that I'm looking at. You can be super excited about your new high-tech solar panel that has better power densities. Okay, say all that in 6 minutes. My new software, whatever. All right, let's assume it's fantastic and it has no bugs. Let's assume it's perfect for the 6-minute conversation. The next 24 minutes, the 40%, I want to hear about your team. If we took you out of the picture, if I'm buying your business and you want out, I'm buying your company, and you leave, what have I got? So prime is that point as you go up the bell curve, go from success to prime. Prime is that point at the top of the curve where you're going to get the maximum price because the company can thrive without you. That's prime. And prime is building yourself to that point. The backroom chatter that private equity people use behind the scenes, they say, we don't want the IP going home at night, meaning you. We don't want all the intellectual property leaving the building and going home. Something happens to you at the end of the business. Can't all be in your head, is what we're saying. Can't just be you. So the faster you can get out of your head and what you do, and the thing that caused your contribution gets multiplied in the organization, even if it's distributed, fine. But if you leave, does it work? Not just can it be maintained, but will it grow? So that's the 40%. So I want to hear for 24 minutes about your team. And it's okay if you don't have a whole team. Oh, we're missing a this and we're missing a that. The fact that you know what you're missing and you have a sense of profile of what you're missing, how you think you're going to attract those new people. I want to hear all that. Tell me how, to your little 10-person company, how you're going to attract that new CFO. Why would this very talented CFO leave a secure job in a $100 million company or $50 million company to come and work for your $1 million company? How are you going to attract that talent? It's a challenge. And this says a lot about you and how the organization is being built. And so we ask a lot of questions around that. Notice we got past the fun part of whatever it is you do. We got past that in the first 6 minutes. We're gone. 24 minutes in, I'm looking to see how you're going to build a team, how it's going to grow, how you're going to scale. And then the last half an hour, where all the CEOs kind of lose enthusiasm, is we want to know your capital structure. How much debt do you have? How many investors have you brought so far? Do those investors have special rights? Do they have options? Do they have warrants? Blah, blah, blah. All the complexities of that. Meaning, if I put my money in your business, am I going to get diluted? Or if they're going to get diluted, or we got a lawsuit. When if I find out you've got over 30 different investors in your small company, I don't want to deal with all that. Because in most states, anyone owns less than 5% in some states, 10% in others, have minority right protections. That means we can't just decide because we have majority interest. So now we have all sorts of new issues, and limited partners are protected and blah, blah. And I just look into that and say, I'm going to put my money into that mess. I'm not interested. When we came in, we bought all those people out. Another way we did it is we cleaned up, it's called cleaning up the capital table, cleaning up the cap table. What that means, a capital table is nothing more than a list of all the people and how many shares they own. That's in its simplest form. But sometimes people come in and say, if I put my money in, now let me tell you, venture capitals or vulture capital is the most talented at this. They come in and say, we won't take a majority of your business. We'll take 20%. We'll give you the $1 million you're asking for. We'll take 20% of the company, which is great because that values it at $5 million. I'm sure you saw the math. And so if 20% is worth $1 million, obviously the company's worth $5 million. So I'm going to give you the $1 million. And here's what we're going to do is you're going to hit these 3 milestones of revenue. If you miss the first one, then we're going to go to 40%. Then we're going to go to 60%. And we'll put the extra money in. We'll put another $500,000, another $500,000. And if we put the third $500,000 in, now we're $2.5 million to it, we'll own 85 or 90% of it. How do I know all this? Because I was 31 years old, raised $30 million for my business. I thought I was a genius for my technology firm. And we thought, man, I'm so smart. And then one day it dawned on me, hang on, before they came in, I owned 70% of this business. Now I own 6%. Didn't feel so smart now. So when they sold it, guess who made all the money? The money people made the money. So the person who did the work doesn't get the money. Okay, here's good news before you get too depressed with that whole private equity approach, because here's the good news. Private equity is desperate for capital. I just found out yesterday that right now, I can't believe this amount. This is so huge, $1.3 trillion. So that's that's $1,300 million. Think about it for a second, right? The $1.3 trillion looking for investments. There are far too few businesses and way, way too much money. Here's the thing. If you build really smartly over the next 3 to 5 years, it doesn't matter that you're $1 million business. It's what that $1 million business can sell for. Because you can have $1 million business that sells for $3 million, or it can sell for $30 million. You say, what? Really, it can be that different. And it's got to do with how you build it. So I'm going to talk a bit about that for today. This is the most serious leadership conversation we can have. And we'll have it 2 or 3 times through the year. So every now and again, you can look up and say, what am I actually building? If you're building a nonprofit, you're not measuring your dollars, you're measuring your reach. How many people did we reach? Okay. If you build it to sell, you're honoring yourself way more. Because if I told you, I'm coming to buy your business in 3 years' time, and we both agree, and you went flat out to create as much value for me as possible, if you were willing to do it for me, why wouldn't you do it for yourself and your family? So it's not just willing to sell. It's not about the I want out. It's I want to build smartly. Whether I keep it, think about whether I keep it and ultimately my estate gets it. Like you said, you die and it goes to your estate. You want to leave as much value as possible. Or you sell it to your management team. That's another good buyer. Or you give it to a family member, which is a lot like the other one as part of the estate, but you just do it before you die. Or you sell it to a very smart buyer, like a PE group. So let me talk for a second. Right now, there are 585,000 privately owned companies in the United States. And what's called middle market. So this means companies that are between 50 million in revenue up to 2 billion. That's called middle market. The smaller companies under 50 million, I don't know how many there are, it's just a lot, because that group fails a lot. So you got 70, 80% failure rates within the first 5 years, which means that if you survive 5 years, you're already like in the top 30%, 20% of businesses anyway. So well done to you. So recognize your achievement, firstly. The next thing is to look at it as, look, even if you're going to give it away, how many of the story of Bob Goff? It's, what's it, Thursdays he gives stuff away? Is it Thursdays, right? He gives stuff away on Thursdays. He always gives something away on Thursdays. Doesn't matter what it is, he gives stuff away on Thursdays. And then one time, he runs a big law firm. He also teaches law at Pepperdine. And so he comes in and he calls his whole team together. And there's a big group of attorneys. And he calls one of the younger attorneys up, hands him the keys, says, "You now own the law firm." The guy says, "Why?" He says, "Because it's Thursday." So, so there you go. So even if you do that, then don't you want to give that young man the best possible business? You don't want to hand him a pile of debt and a bad, on the verge of a bunch of lawsuits. And what is it you're giving him? What are you going to give your kids? I'm not thinking about that. You should be thinking about this because it'll make you build the smartest possible business for you. Even if you never sell it, then you're honoring you and your children. Makes sense. So thanks for raising that. Okay, so let's talk about how do we value a business. So there are only really 3 ways to value a business. And I have a book this thick from my MBA days. I'll save you all that, called Valuation. It's massively complex. And I've done this, by the way, right at the level of Goldman Sachs, and I've helped value businesses and so forth. So I've spent a career doing this, but let me make it really straightforward. For you as the business owner of a small business, trying to think of what is my business value today. We've all watched Shark Tank and they do 5x times the profits or whatever. Fine. That is such a unique case because valuation is so complex that they do that just because they're very smart people and they'll eat the whatever dumb thing it is. And they often are pulling out of, there are deals you look at and you go, why did they pull out of that deal? Because they evaluated it very differently beyond the 5 times the profit. So let's say you have a $10 million business and you drop $1 million to the bottom line, gross profit, before the owner's earnings. So they'll take out your salary out of that, your owner's earnings, because if they're the owners, they would earn that. So they add that in. So let's say with taking out owner's earnings is $1 million left. Then they do the 5x. Okay, it's worth $5 million. Think of all they're really saying is actually quite simple. You created a black box, right? And that black box once a year drops out a pile of cash, $1 million. Now the question is, how many advanced years am I buying? So assuming that, because the business could grow faster, the next year could do 2 or 3 or 4 profits. What I'm doing is I'm buying the black box as it stands today. And I'm saying that I can pretty much guarantee that it's probably going to go up, but it may go down. So let's just net that all out and say, I'm going to have the same black box is going to drop the same $1 million a year. Therefore, it's worth 5 years of dropping the box value. That's the simplest way to understand it. The next thing I'm trying to understand is, how hard is it to crank the handle on the black box to make the $1 million? Do I need a team of 100, or can 2 people online do that? Now, if it takes 2 people online to crank that's why I don't care what the company is. As a private equity investor, I don't care whether it's widgets or whatever. Because to me, it's how hard is it to crank? How complex is this business? There was a company in Atlanta that I worked with closely. It was called Aperon. And Aperon Technologies had 42 PhDs working there. 42. And they worked with major research grants from the US government. And their job was to extract arsenic-3 and arsenic-5 out of water. Turns out Atlanta is some of the cleanest water in the country. It's amazing. I didn't know that until I did that exercise. Here's why I would never buy this company. And their investors, their board brought me in to look at the whole thing. The capital table was so complex, this one, and then it was just a mess. Even if I fixed the capital table, even if we simplified all these investors and what they could do and not get and all that stuff, even if you took away all the options and all the complexity and just made them simple investors, I still wouldn't buy the business. Even if those investors handed me their shares, I wouldn't have bought that business. It was so complex, that business. So I would pay them 1 times earnings, not 5. It's too hard to crank the handle. But if it was 2 people, so let's say it's 2 people online doing this, no officers, just 2 shareholders, they're cranking the handle. And we all say, oh, YouTube guys, it's so easy. It's not. Those guys burn out. That is a tough business. But if you get to a certain momentum, you can have a team of 10, 15 people doing it. But the cranking of it is fairly easy. But who's coming up with all this stuff, and how long will that be there? And will YouTube still be the same in 5 years? No way. So I don't think that if it's dropping $1 million today, cranking the handle is going to be $1 million in 5 years' time. It might be nothing. So I'm not going to give them 5x, give them 3x. So a friend of mine opened up a restaurant group. And what he did was he sold a business chain, and then he took the money and he bought 150 with a major pizza franchise. He bought 150 of them. And I thought, this is crazy. He didn't build them all at once, but he built them in groups of 5 and 10 very rapidly. Within 2-3 years, he got it up to 100. And so people could come to him and offer him 3-5x, because that little pizza place will just churn out cash. They make between 11 and 13% a year. That's the gross profit. Those little things crank out, just churn them out. And by the way, if you have a sitting in pizza, then it drops way down. If it's just sheer delivery, it goes up to 14-15%, which is really interesting, because you could take your money and give it to Warren Buffett and get 15% a year and do absolutely nothing. So he comes to me and he says, hey, I got this new big thing. You need to buy the franchise for this. So, and I said, how much can I make? And he said, well, you're good. So you probably make 15% out of it. And I said, how much does it make in a year? And he said, if you push it, you make $1 million. So I said, I'm doing this for $150K. You're out of your mind. Why don't I give the $1 million to Warren Buffett and do nothing and go and sit at the beach? I have no headaches. That's a lot easier to crank the handle. So that's what you're competing with. I'm an investor. I can give the money to Warren Buffett, or I can buy your business. That's what you're competing with. I'm not going to put it in the bank, because I'm going to get, what, 1 or 2%. That's worthless. Okay, so let's go back to the 3 ways you can, not Shark Tank way, 3 ways. Crank the box. So you think about your business as a black box. Think about how you can make the cranking easier. What can you automate? What can you delete? How can you get less of the gears in there? Get some of the gears out of there. Make that thing smooth. Can you automate it? Can you put a little electric motor in there, turn the handle almost by itself? What can you do to make it easier to crank? That's what we're going to spend a lot of time this year doing, talking about all that.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast. As always, thanks for listening. If you'd like to hear more of this kind of content or submit a question for us to answer live, visit us at dionnevanzyl.com or check the link in the description.